forced out of the house by my father and bullied by street hooligans. When I was homeless, Jason, the owner of a bookstore on the street corner, took me in. Later, we fell in love and got married. The day I found out I was pregnant, I also discovered Jason's hatred for me. Like her? How is it possible? How could I like the daughter of that bitch? I hate all of them, including her. When I send Ethan and Nina to prison, I will kick her away. He hated me, my mother, and his father. His appearance by my side, taking me in, falling in love with me, and making me pregnant. It was all planned. Everything was for revenge. Jason hated me to death. But I wanted to have his child. The day Jason sent his father and my mother to prison, I left silently. Later, it was said that General Manager Yang searched the entire city of Beijing, but still couldn't find his missing wife. I looked at the examination form in my hand, and the corners of my mouth couldn't stop rising. It showed that the fetus was already 3 months old and very healthy. I was so busy during this period that I didn't even notice I was pregnant for 3 months. Jason and I finally have a baby. The crystallization of our love. I don't know if this is Maya Sen. I once told Jason that if it's a daughter, we will name her Maya after she is born. If it's a son, we will name him Sen. My mouth unconsciously rose as I stopped the taxi and returned to Jingjing bookstore. I couldn't wait to share this good news with Jason. When I arrived at the bookstore entrance, I found that the door was locked from the inside. When I took out the key, I accidentally overheard the conversation inside. Jason, are you really in love with Hazel? The person speaking was Jason's work partner, Cindy. My movements paused and my heart pounded. Fall in love with her? How is it possible? How could I like the daughter of that bitch? Jason's careless and contemptuous voice came, like a sharp knife piercing through my heart. I hate all of them, including her. When I send Ethan and Nina to prison, I will kick her away. Cindy's voice was full of joy. Jason, you are right. The daughter of a bitch is also a bitch. Cindy likes Jason. I have always known this. But I didn't know they would talk about me like this behind my back. Daughter of a bitch? I trembled all over and hurriedly turned around, but suddenly bumped into someone. It was Leo, my father who beat me up and kicked me out of the house 8 years ago. Why are you here? I was still in shock. I have no money. Give me some money. Leo looked at me, his eyes greedy. I have no money. I don't believe it. Even if you don't have it, Jason does. You ask him to give it to me. Leo was insistent. Impossible. Jason doesn't tell you anything. Leo glared angrily. He is my son-in-law. What's wrong with him giving me some money to use? Go away. We have no money. Leo lost patience and started swearing. You ungrateful thing. I raised you so big. Just asking you for some money, and you won't give it to me. I should have sold you back then. He still has the nerve to say that. Back then. He cruelly kicked me out of the house. If it weren't for Jason taking me in, I might have died outside long ago. If you don't give me money, I will ask Jason for it myself. Leo said. Jason won't give it to you. He said that if you come to harass me again, he will beat you out. I said. I thought Leo would be furious when he heard this. However, instead of being angry, he laughed. Hazel, don't you really think Jason will support you? Don't you think Jason really wants to live a good life with you? Leo was full of schadenfreude. Like a poisonous snake spitting out its tongue. It was Jason who gave me money back, then and asked me to kick you out of the house. I looked up abruptly. You're lying. I won't believe his sowing discord. Leo can do anything for money. Whether I'm lying or not. You can ask Jason and you'll know. Leo was full of pride. I don't know where I got the strength from. I took the broom next to me and drove Leo away. Get out of here. I don't want to see you. Leo wanted to reach out and grab the broom. But he couldn't take it away from me at all. He could only leave cursing. My face was wet. I reached out to touch it. I didn't know when tears had covered my face. The door suddenly opened. Jason and Cindy looked at me in shock with teary eyes. Jason came over nervously and supported me. Wife? What's wrong? Who bullied you? He has asked me this question many times. He has also protected me many times. I was extremely touched and felt extremely fortunate to have him by my side. Now I only feel dizzy. A wave of nausea rose in my stomach. I shook off his hand and rushed straight to the bathroom, leaving him and Cindy looking at each other in dismay. I vomited so much that it seemed like I was going to vomit out all my internal organs. Jason was anxiously outside. Xiao Hui. Are you okay? What's wrong with you? I'll take you to the hospital for an examination. No need. I said weakly. I took out the examination form from my bag, tore it up and threw it into the toilet. Then I pressed the flush button. After coming out of the bathroom, Jason wanted to support me again, but I avoided his hand. Xiao Hui? His eyes were full of confusion and a bit of helplessness. I'm tired and want to rest first, I said, forcing myself to be energetic. I don't know how to face him. I don't know if what Leo said is true. However, at least what Jason said to Cindy is true. The way he usually acts so loving towards me turned out to be false. Those cares and affections were all false. There is an umbrella with locust flower patterns drying in the living room. That is an umbrella specially customized for me by Jason. My umbrella is always taken by others by mistake. After I told Jason, he customized an umbrella with locust flower patterns for me. He said that in this way, it wouldn't be taken by mistake. After changing to this customized umbrella, my umbrella was indeed never taken by mistake again. Is this also false? Thinking of this, I couldn't help feeling a surge of sadness and burst into tears again. Jason called my mother a whore. Obviously he knows my mother, and also hates her very much. Why? Someone gently wiped the tears on my face. It was Jason. His gaze was as gentle as before. And there was also an unmaskable anxiety and worry. Why are you crying again? Who bullied you? Tell me and I'll teach him a lesson. How dare he bully my wife? If it were in the past, I would have surely poured out everything to him like pouring out beans. Now, I just said, Jason, is there anything you're hiding from me? Of course not. Jason's eyes flickered for a moment, and then he turned his head away and didn't look at me. He is a very perceptive person and immediately asked me, did someone tell you something? No. I just saw it on TV and just wanted to ask. Watch less of those kinds of TV shows. I have nothing to hide from you, Jason said. But his eyes dared not look at me. Oh, so it is. I lowered my eyes in disappointment. Jason bent down to kiss me, but I avoided him and suddenly stood up. Wife. What's wrong? Jason was a little surprised. This is the first time I have refused him. I suddenly remembered that there is a book I haven't read. I have to go and read it, I said stiffly. What book is so important? Does it have to be read right now? Jason said resentfully. Yes. It's very important, and has to be read now, I said. I came to the living room, and looked at the old books all over the room, with mixed feelings in my heart. Now, both Jason and I have very good incomes, but we still continue to run this old bookstore. I randomly picked up a book from the bookstall to read. The words and scenes in the book were very beautiful. I couldn't help being intoxicated by it. Suddenly, a hand was placed on my back. The familiar aura sprayed on my neck, and I instantly became stiff. Wife. What's wrong? Jason sensed my abnormality and asked. I turned around and saw him wearing a bathrobe, looking resentful. Nothing. Why are you here? I calmed down. To come and call you to sleep, Jason said in a resentful tone. What book is so good? Reading it for so long? The book is called My Altai. It's very good, I said. So good that you don't even care about your husband anymore? Jason was dissatisfied. How did I not care about you? You left me alone in an empty room. Jason's tone was extremely aggrieved. If it were in the past, I would have already kissed him. But now, I changed the topic. I really want to go to Altai to have a look in my lifetime. Jason said obligingly, when I'm free after this busy period. I'll go with you. Let's talk about it later. As I said this, I got up and went back to my room. Jason stayed where he was, his two eyebrows tightly knitted together. Cindy appeared at our house more and more frequently and walked with Jason more and more frequently. Today, Cindy came to my doorstep again. Today she was wearing a floor-length evening gown and her makeup was flawless and exquisite. When she saw me, pity and pride flashed in her eyes. Jason and I are going to attend a party together tonight, she said in a showy way. Oh, I replied casually. But my thoughts drifted away. I remembered what the doctor said to me in the afternoon. You have very severe anemia and cannot have an abortion. If you forcefully have this operation, there may be a life-threatening danger. Seeing my indifferent expression, Cindy flashed a trace of anger in her eyes. Jason is about to ascend soon. But you still don't know anything. You can't help him at all, and are simply not worthy of him. How can you be sure that I don't know anything? I smiled. Cindy was stunned. What do you know? Jason's voice came from behind. I turned around and looked. He was dressed in a suit, and was extremely handsome. Standing next to Cindy, who was dressed up grandly. They were very well matched. As soon as he appeared, Cindy immediately greeted him with a smile. Jason. Cindy wanted to hold Jason's arm, but Jason avoided her. He fixedly looked at me. Xiao Hui. What do you know? I gave a bleak smile. I don't know anything. Jason wanted to reach out and pull me, but I avoided him. He frowned and looked at me. Cindy's voice sounded in time. Jason. We should go. Jason took a deep look at me. Wait for me to come back. Not long after they left, I received a text message from an unfamiliar number. Come to the banquet hall of Yinghua Hotel and you will know everything you want to know. I took a taxi to Yinghua Hotel. After getting off the car, I walked into the banquet hall. The banquet hall was brightly lit and a banquet was being held. Before long, I saw Jason's figure. He and Cindy stood together. Under the illumination of the lights, they looked like a prince and a princess. I found a corner seat and sat down. I saw a man who looked 6 points similar to Jason introduced that this was his son Jason. He will come back to inherit the company. On the day he inherits the company, he will also be engaged to Cindy, the daughter of the Lin family. So that's it. No wonder Cindy looks so confident in front of me. I saw Cindy wanting to hold Jason's hand, but Jason avoided her. Several traces of unwillingness flashed across Cindy's face. After that, Jason and Cindy left the table, avoiding the crowd. I quietly followed behind them. They stopped in a corridor. I heard Cindy ask, somewhat aggrieved lie, Jason, you are so cold to me. Am I just a pawn to you? Of course not. Jason denied. Cindy smiled. After a while, she continued. What about Hazel? Is she your pawn? Yes. Jason said without hesitation. Cindy continued to press. But it seems that you care about her a lot. Jason chuckled lightly, as if hearing a joke. It's just acting. I've wasted so many years trapping her. Now it's time to draw in the net. I heard Jason say, I hate all of them, including Hazel. I won't let anyone go. Tonight, I will send Ethan and Nina to prison. I won't let Hazel go either. Revenging on Hazel is too simple. She must think that I love her deeply. At this time, whether I use cold violence on her, cheat on her, or abandon her, it can make her feel worse than F. It's a pity that she isn't pregnant yet. But I will make her pregnant. When she is pregnant, I will tell Nina, your daughter has been slept with by me for several years, and she is pregnant. But I don't want her anymore. Nina should already be in prison by then. What Hazel, with a big belly, go to visit her in prison. The mother and daughter will hug and cry. I could barely stand still. I took a step back and accidentally bumped into a fire extinguisher. Who's eavesdropping? Cindy sounded out vigilantly. Footsteps came from inside. I quickly hid in the corner of the stairs. Jason and Cindy thought the eavesdropper had run away, and quickly chased after them. After they were far away, I came out. My stomach kept feeling nauseous. I ran to the restroom and couldn't control my vomiting. It was almost as if I was vomiting out all my internal organs. When I walked outside the hotel, a cleaner aunt stopped me. "Little girl. Wait. What's the matter?" I asked. My vision was blurred and I couldn't see anything clearly. Are you okay?" the aunt asked hesitantly. "I'm fine," I said. The aunt took out a pack of tissues and handed it to me. "Wipe your face." I took the tissues and touched my face. It was already soaked. "Thank you, aunt." I thanked the aunt and left. When I left, I heard the sound of police sirens. Then I saw several police cars parked outside the hotel. But I had no time to take care of it anymore. When I walked out of the hotel, my phone rang. I took a look. The note was "Husband." It was a call from Jason. I pressed the phone screen to turn it off. The phone rang continuously. It seemed that it wouldn't stop until I answered. I turned off the phone and took out the SIM card and threw it into the trash can. I walked on the street in a daze. It is midsummer now, but I feel extremely cold. I am homeless again. It seems as if I am back to the day when my father drove me out of the house. On that day, it was snowing heavily and the north wind was blowing hard. I was 16 years old and in my second year of high school. Leo came back after drinking. He picked up a broom and beat me severely. Then he drove me out of the house. Years have passed. Leo's scolding still often echoes in my ears. "Little whore. A burden. Just like your bitch mother. You are a little bitch." He hit me on the face with a stick. The side of my face that was hit quickly swelled up and was burning with pain. Leo didn't know how long he beat me. Later, when he was tired, he threw the stick aside and went to get some water to drink. I lay on the ground, unable to move. Leo threw all the furniture on the ground. Then he grabbed my hair and said viciously, "Get out. When I see you, I think of your bitch mother." I don't have a mother. Since I can remember, I have never seen my mother. I once heard neighbors say that after my mother gave birth to me, my grandma and father disliked that she gave birth to a daughter and didn't give her food. In a fit of anger, she left and never came back. My father resents her. As his own life is not satisfactory, he vents all his emotions on me. Now he is even driving me out of the house. It is now in the dead of winter. The cold wind is blowing hard, like a knife cutting into the body. There is not a single good place on my whole body. My clothes are also torn to pieces by Leo's iron rod. When the wind blows, the wounds on my body hurt even more. I walked forward in a daze and took shelter from the cold wind under a bridge. A red-haired man came up to me. I recognized him. His name is Lee Hun. He is a well-known little hooligan in this area. He looked at my torn clothes and exposed skin and smiled obscenely. "This is my territory. If you want to stay here, you have to pay protection money." I have no money. Lee Hun showed a fierce look. "If you have no money, get out. I won't leave." "You say this is your territory. What evidence do you have?" Lee Hun's eyebrows twitched. He came over and slapped me several times. He still felt indignant and picked up a wooden stick and walked over. He first kicked me on the knee. Immediately, I was in so much pain that I knelt down. Then, he raised the stick and hit me like crazy. I curled up on the ground, covering my head with my hands, feeling as if my spine was about to be broken. Drip, drip. I looked up and saw a few drops of blood dripping on the ground. Subconsciously, I touched my forehead and found it was dry. The blood was dripping from Lee Hun's head. Then, Lee Hun hugged his head and knelt and lay on the ground. Then, I saw a tall and straight figure looming over Lee Hun. That was my first encounter with Jason. He was holding a stick with a little blood on it. His expression was as fierce as that of a yaksha. But to me, he was like a god descending from the sky. Didn't I tell you last time not to let me see you bullying people again? Jason stepped on Lee Hun's finger with his shoe. Lee Hun grimaced in pain. Jason squatted down and fanned his face with his hand. Will you bully the weak in the future? Lee Hun couldn't even get up. He hurriedly said, No. No, after that. Jason took me back to his home. A bookstore on the street corner, Jing Jing bookstore. He fetched water for me to wash my face, and helped me apply an medicine to my wounds. In the small living room, there was warm yellow light. The window not far away was open, and there were many old books under the window. When I looked over, the first thing I saw was the book Les Miserables. The warm light made me reluctant to leave, so I couldn't help but thicken my skin and say, Can I stay here? Jason's hand applying medicine to me paused. He looked up at me, his eyes unclear. You should go home, he said. I have no home, I said. He paused again. What about your parents? He asked. Dead, I said. Can you let me stay here? I won't eat and live for free. I can help you sell books, look after the store, do laundry, and cook. I still wanted to list more, but he interrupted me. Yes. I didn't expect that he would agree to me so easily. I was like a person who had been hungry for a long time. A pie fell from the sky and instantly stunned me. Jason is a mystery to me. He is 5 years older than me. I am in my sophomore year of high school this year. But he is already in his sophomore year of college. He took me in but was very distant from me. This old bookstore is both his store and his home. But I have never seen his other family members. Once, I boldly asked him, What about your parents? Jason froze. After a while, he said, Also dead. His voice was terribly cold. I couldn't help shivering. The bookstore where Jason and I live has a living room and 2 rooms. Jason and I each live in 1 room and live in peace. At first, Jason greeted me like a wild grass, ignoring me and pretending not to see me. No communication unless necessary. I had no complaints about this. I was already very grateful that he took me in and gave me a place to stay. We have always maintained such a way of getting along until Jason had a high fever once. By then, we had been depending on each other for a year. That day was Saturday. Jason came back from collecting old books outside and got caught in the rain accidentally. At night, he had a high fever. I was worried and went to take care of him. His lips were chapped due to the high fever. I moistened them with a cotton swab dipped in water. Jason fell asleep but slept restlessly. He kept trembling and shouting, Mom! Mom! Don't go! Don't leave me alone. Jason had always been indifferent, strong, and invincible in front of me. I had never seen him so vulnerable. I couldn't help holding his hand and saying, Don't go. Don't go. I will always be with you. After repeating this many times, he stopped trembling. In the middle, I wanted to go to the bathroom, but Jason held my hand and wouldn't let go. I forced it open. Jason woke up and looked at me like looking at an enemy. I didn't take it too hard. I just thought he was still trapped in a nightmare and not fully awake. Later, Jason fell asleep again. In the latter half of the night, he began to shout that he was cold. I touched his forehead. Sure enough, it was very cool. So I got into the bed and slept with him. He held me and kept shouting, Mom, as if to thank me for taking care of him all night. The next day, when Jason went out to collect old books, he brought back a strawberry cake for me. When I asked about his mother, he was silent for a while and told me about his family affairs. He said that his father had died long ago. His mother took care of him alone. While making money, she also had to take care of him. It was very hard. Later, she got cancer. In less than 3 months, she passed away. That year, he was 15 years old. After his mother died, his grandma brought the 15-year-old him back to this home. Grandma had been retired for a long time. While running this old bookstore, she took care of him and let him continue to go to school. His mother's name is Lin Jing. The name of this old bookstore is named after his mother. Soon after, his grandma also died of illness. Jason, 16 years old, became an orphan completely. He survived by relying on this old bookstore, left by his grandma. While going to school, he sold books. When Jason said these things, he was looking out of the window all the time. His tone was very calm. But I was very sad. He looked so lonely, as if abandoned by the whole world. I couldn't help but walk over and give him a hug. We are now depending on each other. He stiffened for a moment, but didn't push me away. He said in a muffled voice, "Yes, depending on each other." From then on, Jason and I became much closer. He would ask about my studies and tutor me. Later, I was successfully admitted to a local university. I fell in love with him in college and then got married. Until now, I am pregnant. I originally thought that such a peaceful and happy life would continue like this. Unexpectedly. In fact, everything is traceable. Jason's abnormality showed up initially. Once, an aunt who lived nearby came to sell a few old books for children. I greeted her. She asked me, "Why haven't I seen you before? What's your relationship with Jason?" To save trouble, I casually said, "I am his sister. I used to live in the countryside." The aunt frowned. "Sister? Impossible. As far as I know, Jason's mother only gave birth to him." The aunt paused and suddenly realized, "Could it be that you are the child of his stepmother?" Now it was my turn to frown. "Does Jason have a stepmother?" Just then, Jason came out with a gloomy face and said very disapprovingly, "She is not my sister." The aunt showed a puzzled expression. Seeing Jason's unfriendly face, she pursed her lips and left. "Do you dislike me?" I couldn't help asking. "Yes. Always staying here and not leaving. You are so annoying." Jason's tone was extremely impatient. I couldn't help but redden my eyes and ran out before the tears fell. I sat down on a bench in the park, tears streaming down continuously. I knew that I was a burden. Neither my father nor my mother loved me. Jason also disliked me. The world is so big. But there is no place for me. Gradually, it got dark. My stomach was also growling with hunger. A person passed by. It was Li Hun, who had beaten me before. Li Hun saw me and whistled, "Hazel, I didn't expect you to be quite good-looking." I turned my face to the other side. "Hey, you have quite a temper. Why are you sitting here alone? Did Jason abandon you?" Li Hun came in front of me again. "None of your business," I said coldly. He was choked for a moment, and then continued to smile. "Of course it's my business. If Jason doesn't want you, I want you," Li Hun said and reached out to touch me. I pushed him away. "What are you doing?" Li Hun staggered and fell to the ground. A fierce look flashed in his eyes. Seeing that the situation was not good, I got up and ran. Because I ran too fast, I fell down and sprained my foot. With every movement, a sharp pain came from my ankle. Li Hun had already caught up. He put his arm around my neck and pressed me to the ground. He pressed on me and his whole body weight was on me. He pulled down the zipper of his pants and put his hand into my collar. My pupils constricted. In despair, I suddenly felt lighter. Li Hun was dragged up and thrown to the ground. It was Jason. Li Hun got up. Jason punched him in the face again, making his nose bleed. Jason, listen to my explanation." Li Hun hurriedly begged for mercy. But Jason seemed not to hear. His eyes were bloodshot and he beat and kicked Li Hun. "I can't bear to touch her." "What right do you have to touch her?" After a long while, Jason stopped. "Let's go home and eat." Jason reached out and pulled me. He was breathing heavily. His eyes were bloodshot and he looked like the king of hell coming out of hell. I took a step back. Jason rubbed his temples. After taking a deep breath, he said a little annoyed, "Did I scare you?" I was stunned for a moment, and then threw myself into his arms directly. I put my arms around his waist and tears fell on his chest. After a moment, a pair of warm big hands gently stroked my back unskillfully. Okay. Okay. It's all right. At this moment, the half-dead Lee Hun suddenly got up and hit Jason on the head with a stick. Drip. Drip. Blood dripped from Jason's head. I was extremely distressed. Jason's face instantly turned cold. Lee Hun waved the stick and approached him again. Jason. Be careful. I shouted. Jason turned around, easily took the stick away, and beat Lee Hun until he couldn't even get up. I approached him. Due to my injured ankle, I gasped in pain. Are you okay? Jason asked me. I'm fine. Are you okay? I looked at his head with heartache. He leaned closer for me to see. It was already swollen, but he still said it was nothing. I couldn't help but blow on it for him. Jason smiled. You are just like my mom. He suddenly paused halfway through. Seeing my face full of heartache and guilt, he said again, don't be sad. If you really feel bad, help me fulfill a wish. What wish? I asked. I can't think of it for the time being. I'll tell you later. Jason found that I had sprained my foot. He squatted down in motion for me to climb on his back and carry me back. I lay on his back, put my arms around his neck, and my exhaled hot air also sprayed on his neck. Jason stiffened for a moment. I thought it was fun and blew on his neck again. Jason was annoyed and easily jolted me on his back. I almost slipped off his back and hurriedly shouted, I'm going to fall. I'm going to fall. You deserve it. Jason said unkindly. In the blink of an eye. I have been living in a village in Altai for half a year. Xinjiang is vast in territory and very beautiful. There are large expanses of grasslands and Gobi deserts everywhere. In summer, there will be large expanses of flower seas. It's a pity that it is winter now. This place is so vast. Sometimes when walking on the road, it's hard to meet a person. Here there are flocks of cattle and sheep, and camels and horses that are rarely seen. Here there is very cheap big plate chicken in Nang, that is bigger than a person's face and very fragrant and crispy. I am very lucky. Everyone I meet here is very friendly. My new neighbor is a very kind and beautiful girl. She likes wild foxes. So she gave herself a nickname called Xiao Li. When I woke up the next morning, the door of my house was already buried by heavy snow. I took a shovel to shovel the snow. After a few shovels, I heard Xiao Li's clear voice. I knew that your door was also piled up with snow. Xiao Li also held a shovel in her hand, and rushed over to help me shovel the snow. To thank Xiao Li for helping me shovel the snow, I made dinner to entertain her. After having dinner, she invited me to take a walk outside. She wrapped my face and neck with a thick scarf to protect me from the cold winter wind. When people are troubled, they should go outside and feel the evening breeze. The troubles will be blown away by the wind. Then you will be happy. Moreover, taking more walks can help the baby be born better. She also said that after I gave birth to the baby, she would teach me how to ride a horse. I'd have seen her riding a horse. Little fox gallops on the prairie on horseback, free and unrestrained, like an elf and also like a traveler. That is what I yearn for. So, I said to her, okay. It's just that I don't know if I can wait until that day. You don't have to worry about the baby. I can help you take care of her together. Little Fox said. Okay. Little Fox is really nice. And Altai is also very nice. It's a pity that I didn't meet them earlier, and didn't come here earlier. On this day, Little Fox and I were eating big plate chicken in a local restaurant. The TV in the restaurant was playing financial news. I looked up and unexpectedly saw a familiar face. It was Jason. He looked a bit thinner, but appeared even more handsome and sharp. There was a sharp pain in my heart, as if scalded by boiling water. I shifted my gaze. Little Fox noticed my gaze and immediately said, this person is called Jason. He is very powerful. He is a diamond bachelor that many people are eager to pursue. Little Fox chattered on and on beside me. However, his life experience is rather tragic. It is said that his mother and his father started from scratch and created a family business, which is today's Liang's. Later, Ethan cheated on his wife with a mistress. He brought the mistress to the door, abandoned his wife and son, and forced his original wife to death. Fortunately, Jason is competitive. He not only took back the company but also sent that pair of immoral people to prison. It is said that many socialites in Beijing want to marry Jason, but it is said that he is already married. What an early marriage. Unfortunately, his wife is missing. It is said that he searched the whole city of Beijing, but still couldn't find his wife. It is heard that he has recently come here because his wife once said that in her lifetime, she wants to see Altai described by Li Wan. I remained silent all the time. Little Fox looked at me inquiringly. I forced a smile and said to her, "Let's go back." I had a bad premonition in my heart. When I returned to the door of my house, I saw a familiar figure. It was Jason. "Wife." Jason called me. His voice hoarse. When he saw my bulging belly, his eyes instantly turned red. Seeing this, Little Fox wide and her eyes in surprise. "Little Fox, you go back first," I said to Little Fox, who was full of surprise. Little Fox looked at Jace and warily and reminded me, "Be careful. Send me a message if there is anything." I nodded with a smile. Jason spoke again, but his voice was trembling. "Wife." I interrupted him. "Let's go in first. You are pregnant. Why didn't you tell me?" Jason's voice was choked with sobs and there was reproach in his tone. He reached out to touch my belly, but I avoided him. Disappointment and surprise flashed in Jason's eyes. If it were in the past, when he showed such an expression, I would definitely be extremely distressed. Now, I only feel disgusted. I sneered and said, "I heard everything you said in the hotel corridor with Cindy that day." Jason's pupils constricted, and he said stiffly, "What? What words?" I smiled even more mockingly. "You said that she must think that I love her so much. At this time, whether I give her the cold shoulder, cheat on her, or directly dump her, I am sure that I can make her extremely miserable." Jason's eyelashes trembled violently, and his eyes were full of shock and pain. You heard it all. I really did love you so much," I said. Jason's face lit up. Just as he was about to say something, I interrupted him. "But that was in the past. Jason, now I wish I had never met you. I wish I had been beaten to death by Li Han that winter night." Jason's pupils shook violently, and his eyes were full of disbelief. "You also said that you planned to make me pregnant. Then tell my mother that her daughter has been slept with by me for several years and is now pregnant. But I don't want her anymore." Jason rumbled, and couldn't say anything. I continued. "I went to the prison to see my mother for you. I told her everything that happened between us. She scolded me for being stupid, and not inheriting her intelligence at all. No. She's talking nonsense. Wife. You're not." Jason rumbled and denied. "I am really stupid. You said you wanted to have a child that belongs only to us. The crystallization of our love. I actually believed it. There is no one more stupid than me in the world. Wife. I really love you. I also want our child." Jason explained incoherently. I interrupted him again. "She said that she finally forced your mother away. But I ended up in your hands. She is so disappointed. She wishes she had never given birth to me." Jason. You are disappointed. You took me in for many years just to take revenge on her. Unfortunately, she doesn't seem to care much about me. However, it doesn't matter. You didn't take revenge on her. But you took revenge on me. Didn't you want to take revenge on me? Congratulations. You succeeded. Very successfully. Now I am really extremely miserable." Jason's face turned pale. He was like a fool and could only repeat, "No. No, no. Don't pretend. I just want to ask you one last question. My dad came to see me a while ago and said that it was you who gave him money and asked him to drive me out of the house. Is what he said true? Jason's pupils dilated. You already know. I couldn't help laughing loudly. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. I laughed until I couldn't stop coughing. I laughed until I coughed up a mouthful of blood. Jason wanted to come and help me. I avoided his hand and took a few steps back. Jason's eyes were full of unhidden worry and hurt. Wife. Be careful of your body and the baby. Jason said carefully. A week later, Ting and I will meet my parents. After the business trip, Ting returned to his previous state. For 2 consecutive days. He didn't send me any messages. The previous enthusiasm when we were close also gradually cooled down in the absence of news. On the last day of the National Day holiday, I attended a wedding banquet with my parents. This time, at the relative's wedding banquet, I finally saw my distant cousin who used to pick duck eggs with me when we were kids. He is tall and big, with wheat-colored skin, very healthy. He is simply an enlarged version of when he was a child. I don't know why I mistakenly thought that my cousin would turn into someone like Ting before. Beside him, the cousin's wife has a gentle smile. Cousin. You are so lucky to marry such a beautiful cousin's wife. The cousin's wife blushed and smiled. The cousin said unkindly. You still have such a sweet mouth. When you were a child, you coaxed me into giving you all the duck eggs. Now you make your cousin's wife smile so happily again. During the meal, the cousin took special care of his wife. Looking at the two of them being so sweet, I was a bit envious. I couldn't help but send a message to Ting. I miss you. Sure enough, the message sank without a trace and no one replied. Not wanting to humiliate myself, I withdrew this message. Unexpectedly, as soon as I withdrew the message, Ting replied. I was so angry that I almost dropped my phone. Noticing my wrong mood, after the cousin finished picking up food for his wife, he also picked up a chopstick FUL for me. Eat more and gain some weight. Cousin, are you saying I'm fat? The chicken leg in the bowl suddenly didn't seem delicious anymore. The cousin's wife pretended to be annoyed and slapped the cousin. Can't you talk properly? Oh, I'm clumsy with words. I'm clumsy with words. The simple-minded cousin scratched his head. After chatting and laughing while eating, when it was time to leave, the cousin and his wife warmly invited. In the afternoon, we booked a private room, and will sing with friends. Why don't you come too? Although I got along well with my cousin and his wife. After all, I haven't met their friends before. To avoid embarrassment, I refused. No need. I made an appointment with my best friend to go shopping in the afternoon. Then bring your best friend along. This isn't very appropriate. My mom chimed in at the right time. What's inappropriate? I remember that Wairon is still single. As soon as the word, single, entered my ears, the alarm bells rang in my heart, wanting to escape. But my cousin and his wife had already put one of my arms each and got me into the car. Half an hour later, we arrived. As soon as we entered the private room, my cousin introduced to several people in the room. This is my cousin Warm. Isn't she beautiful? Beautiful. Everyone was very cooperative. Then my cousin said to the most handsome man inside. Du Yang. Take care of my cousin today. I took a closer look at the man. Isn't this the guy whose photo my mom showed me before and said she wanted to introduce him to me? Sure enough. This is a trap. Hello. After a simple greeting to Zhu Yang, I whispered to my cousin. Cousin. I have a boyfriend and I'm planning to get married. Unexpectedly, after hearing my words, my cousin burst out laughing. Warm. Don't lie to me. And told me that you don't even have a boyfriend. How can you get married? You really go to great lengths to avoid blind dates. Yang Thai is my brother. Don't worry. I'll help you check him out. He said loudly and pushed me towards Su Yang. I could only sit down awkwardly with Su Yang and find a seat. Fortunately, at this time, my best friend Wairon came. I quickly waved to her and let her sit between me and Zhu Yang. Wai Yuan is a carefree person, and can talk to anyone. Soon she became friends with everyone. Finally, there was no need to have contact with Su Yang. Before I could catch my breath, my cousin started causing trouble again. He ordered a love song. Su Yang, warm. You two are so suitable for this song. What could I do? I could only turn my pleading eyes to my best friend Wai Yuan. As expected of my best friend. She is so reliable. I'll do it. She stood up. After singing in the afternoon and having a meal. In the evening, everyone went to a bar. The more we played, the more excited we got. The premise is that if my cousin and his wife didn't keep trying to match me and Zhu Yang, warm. Hurry up and go to the dance floor and dance. What are you doing sitting in the booth? My cousin said, pushing Zhu Yang with one hand and me with the other. Pushing us onto the dance floor. I thought this couldn't go on. If it really made the other party misunderstand, it would be troublesome. So, I decided to lay my cards on the table with Zhu Yang. The music around was extremely noisy. I opened my mouth and shouted, I have something to say to you. Coincidentally, I also have something to say to you. Then you speak first. That is. Zhu Yang suddenly became shy. Oh no, is he going to confess to me? Just when I was about to run away directly, Zhu Yang's voice rang out again. Sorry. Warm. I seem to have fallen in love with your best friend Wai Yuan. After a moment of stunned silence, I came to my senses. Like Wai Yuan? Great. I laughed heartily. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. Seeing that it was a message from Ting, I quickly clicked on it. He asked me, what are you doing? Why did he suddenly send such a message? Frowning, I replied without blushing or beating my heart. I'm about to go to bed. What's wrong? I didn't want to lie either. But I couldn't tell Ting that I was at a bar. Could I? The reply came quickly from the other side. You sleep at a bar? What? I wiped away a tear and then smiled again. When I first found out I was pregnant, I was very happy. I originally planned to go home and tell you this good news. But when I was at the door of our house, I heard you tell Cindy that you would never fall in love with me. You said that the daughter of a bitch is also a bitch. What about the child I give birth to? Is it also a bitch? Later, I didn't want this child anymore. But the doctor said that I was extremely anemic and refused to perform an abortion on me. So it was dragged until now. I want this child. I want this child. Jason said anxiously. If you want a child, go find someone else to give birth to one for you. As for my child, it has nothing to do with you. I sneered. But I am the father of the child in your belly. Jason emphasized. So what? I smiled strangely. You only provided a sperm. Jason was a little panicked and his face was full of pain and injury. I smiled again and said softly, Jason, who are you showing this painful look for now? You should smile. Your revenge has succeeded. You successfully made me fall in love with you. Successfully made me pregnant. Successfully abandoned me. Successfully made me extremely miserable. Successfully sent your father and my mother to prison. Successfully retaliated against all of us. You should be very happy. You should smile. Jason's lips turned pale and he didn't say a word. I raised my voice. You should smile. Why don't you smile? Who are you showing this look of extreme pain for now? Who are you pretending for? I heard my own voice that was almost shrill. Just like the cuckoo mourning outside the window these days. Jason rumbled violently, and could hardly stand still. I took a step forward. You smile. Why don't you smile? Why don't you smile? Why don't you smile? Jason's lips trembled, and he wanted to say something but stopped. I took another step forward and said in a low voice, You are like I owe you something. Even if I owe you, I have paid it off completely now. Go away. Don't appear in front of me again. You disgust me. I won't go. Wife. I was wrong before. I didn't recognize my own heart. I really love you. I won't go, Jason said firmly. I just want to spend my whole life with you. Can we live a good life in the future? I felt like I had heard some joke and laughed wildly again. Tears couldn't be controlled and gushed out of my eyes. After laughing enough, I said, whatever. I am tired and don't want to argue with him anymore. I am so tired. I am so exhausted. No matter what Jason thinks. As long as I want. Everything will end. Everything will end. I couldn't doctor Jason away. So I let him stay in the guest room. In the middle of the night, I heard the cuckoo's shrill cry again. It cried mournfully as if it was calling me. I went out and opened the window. There was a strong wind outside the window. I felt very stuffy. In a daze, I walked into the kitchen. I didn't know what I had done. When I came to my senses again, I found a very big cut on my wrist. That big cut was like a slightly open mouth. Bloody and fleshy. As if it was going to swallow me. Blood. All I could see was blood. My eyes were scarlet. I turned on the faucet and wanted to wash my wrist clean. But the blood seemed endless. No matter how much I washed, it couldn't be washed clean. The cuckoo's shrill cry sounded again. I opened the door and went out. At a glance, I saw it. It was standing on the treetop, looking at me. Its eyes full of pity and compassion. Tonight's moon is very beautiful. Big and round. The cuckoo looked at me for a while and then flew away in the moonlight. I couldn't help but chase after it. I ran and ran. As if as long as I ran fast enough, the shadows of the past wouldn't catch up with me. I ran and ran. As if as long as I ran fast enough, all the pain and harm could be left behind by me. I ran and ran. Until I was exhausted and couldn't run anymore. I stopped and fell to the ground. The cuckoo also stopped. It perched on the treetop in the Gobi Desert and looked at me. Its eyes were full of pity and compassion. I cried and crawled towards it. Xiao Hui. Xiao Hui. Where are you? In a trance, I seemed to hear Jason's panicked and extremely anxious voice. It must be an illusion. Jason, who is always calm and composed. How could he be so panicked and anxious? Even if he really came to look for me. It might be that he wants to deceive me for the second time. I won't let him deceive me again. I won't turn back. At the very least. Even if he really wants to be with me now with all his heart. So what? I don't want him anymore. A broken mirror, even if it is barely put together, is also full of scars. There is no going back. I tried hard to crawl towards the cuckoo. But before I could reach it, I lost consciousness. A strong smell of disinfectant came from the tip of my nose. I opened my eyes and everything I saw was white. My left wrist was wrapped with white gauze. There was an IV drip on my right hand. My stomach had deflated. My head was splitting. After a while, the ward door was pushed open. Jason came in, holding a baby in his arms. Seeing me, his eyes couldn't hide his joy. Xiao Hui, you are awake. I opened my mouth but found that I couldn't make a sound. Jason walked up to me and brought the baby in his arms closer to me. This is our child. It's a daughter. I like her very much. She looks like you. His voice was very gentle. The child was asleep. When she was brought closer to me, she moved slightly as if she was sleeping restlessly. Jason patted the child skillfully like a real good husband and good father. Seeing this child, many scenes flashed through my mind, and my heart was deeply grieved. Before the tears fell, I moved my eyes away. I don't know how long it took. Jason took me and the child away from the hospital. Away from the Gobi Desert. Back to Beijing. He didn't take me back to Jingjing Bookstore. Once I thought Jingjing Bookstore would be my home. But later I found out it wasn't. Jingjing Bookstore is Jason's home. And I am just a stray cat or dog he picked up. I have no home. Jason took me to a villa. There are many servants in the villa. They call me Madam. Madam. When I heard this address, I smiled sarcastically. Jason is very busy with work. The servants in the villa follow me every day. When I am in the room, they follow me. When I go up and down the stairs, they follow me. When I enter the kitchen, they are even more on high alert. Once when I wanted to go out, I was even stopped. The housekeeper said, "Sorry, madame. The sir said you can't go out for the time being." I felt bored. I had to focus on the child. The child. My child. She is only 3 months old now. Her facial features have grown a lot, and she is much prettier than before. She is no longer like a monkey. My sweet and soft daughter will give me an innocent smile as long as I tease her. When I was a little baby, was I also so innocent? When Jason was a little baby, was he also so naive? I didn't have a mother since I was a child. So I thought that when I have a child in the future, I must love her well, take good care of her and be a good mother. At that time, I swore that I would definitely be better than my mother. But fate is teasing. Now, it is extremely difficult for me to even take care of myself. I can't even hold a chopstick steadily. I even wanted to die with her. As if sensing my emotions, the child stretched out her tender little hand and touched my face. I hugged the child. Hugged my own flesh and blood. My only warmth and concern in this life. I couldn't help but burst into loud sobs. The crying attracted the servant at the door. She looked at me crying in surprise and then hurried downstairs. Not long after, Jason came back. He looked tired and his face was full of worry. Jason approached me carefully and asked carefully, "Xiao Hui, is there anything unhappy today?" "No. If there is anything bothering you, you can tell me. You don't have to worry about anything. I will solve everything for you." "Oh. I don't care." Jason was silent for a while, and then continued to ask, "Did the baby bother you today?" "No. She is very good." "That's good. You don't have to worry about anything. Our family will always be together." Jason took my hand and said. I pulled my hand out. Perhaps because of guilt. "I play with the baby every day. The baby is a very good-tempered baby. She seldom cries. As soon as she leans against me, she rubs against me affectionately. Gradually, I smile more and no longer tremble all the time when I hold chopsticks. Jason is also willing to let me go out. But everything hasn't gotten better. One day, I went into the kitchen to make complimentary food for the baby. Seeing the knife again, I felt a little dizzy. When I came to my senses, there was another cut on my hand. At the same time, the baby in the stroller suddenly cried loudly. I quickly picked up the baby and coaxed her. Before going out today, I took a last look at the baby. Sorry. I am not a good mother. Sorry. I am not much better than my mother. My baby is like me. A poor baby. 3 years later, the heavy rain in midsummer comes quickly and urgently. When I arrived at tomorrow kindergarten, the rain was still falling non-stop. Sister Yun had something to do today and asked me to pick up her child for her. After I picked up Min Min, I found a little girl standing alone. She was holding an umbrella with Sephora flower patterns. Just one look at it made my eyes sting. I couldn't help but walk towards her. The big black umbrella in my hand covered her small Sephora flower umbrella. "Little friend, is there no one from your family to pick you up?" I squatted down and asked her. "Auntie, my dad has something to come and can't come. He asked the aunt to pick me up." The tender voice was like a baby bird chirping. When I heard this voice, I couldn't help but burst into tears. She looked up at me. In a trance, I seemed to see that child. My child. Is this my child? I heard that Jason took her to live abroad. How could I see her at tomorrow kindergarten? "Where's your mother?" I asked. She hesitated for a moment, and then spoke again. Her voice was much lower, as far as I can remember. "There is only my father. I haven't seen my mother. They all say that I am a child without a mother." Without a mother. Suddenly, the pattering rain and the noise seemed to fade away. Tears welled up in my eyes again. A tender little hand stroked my face. Auntie, don't cry. I accompanied the child and waited at the kindergarten entrance until the person who was picking her up arrived. The person picking her up was a middle-aged woman. While calling out Miss Maya Maya, she walked towards us. Maya Maya. A familiar voice came to mind. If we have a child in the future. If it's a girl, we will name her Maya Maya. If it's a boy, we will name him Sen Sen. My eyes were somewhat blurred with tears, so I couldn't see clearly the appearance of that middle-aged woman. Seeing that the person picking her up had come, I was about to leave. Maya Maya. Goodbye, I said. When I was about to let go of her hand, she suddenly hooked my finger. She showed me an extremely innocent smile. Auntie. Goodbye. Looking at such a pure face and such a pure smile, it seemed that everything could be forgiven. It has been several days since I met that little girl named Maya Maya at the kindergarten. But I still can't forget it. Sister Yun took Min Min out to play today. I am alone looking after the store. A new customer came to the flower shop and interrupted my thoughts. Welcome. What flowers do you want? The person didn't answer for a long time. I looked up and saw a familiar face with a hint of anger. As if a nightmare had come true. Hazel. You disappeared without a word for 3 years. You actually have a child with someone else? Jason's voice was full of anger and undeniable pain. What's it to you? I retorted. Of course it's my business. We are husband and wife. Jason said. Husband and wife who haven't seen each other for 3 years? I retorted sarcastically. At least we are still husband and wife legally. Jason was stubborn. Then let's get a divorce now, I said. Jason immediately looked like a deflated balloon. After a long while, he said, I didn't come to talk about this with you. What did you come for? Looking for trouble? I didn't get angry but smiled instead. I came to tell you that our daughter wants to see you. Jason said. I was silent. After several years of not seeing each other, Jason's net worth has skyrocketed. The car he drives has also changed from a Buick to a Bentley. The car is very good and very comfortable. But when I sat in it, I felt uncomfortable all over. For a moment, I even had the impulse to get off. Jason seemed to notice. He leaned over and helped me fasten my seat belt. Then he said, Maya Maya really wants to see her mother. So I gave up the idea of getting off. Jason took me back to that villa from 3 years ago. The carved iron gate was covered with blooming roses. It was the same as when I left. It seemed that nothing had changed. But in fact everything had changed. You go down and see Maya Maya first. I'll drive the car to the garage. Jason unfastened my seat belt. I got out of the car, took a deep breath, and walked towards the villa gate. As soon as I reached the door, a small figure rushed over like lightning. I quickly caught her as if catching my life. Mom. She looked up and called me. It was exactly the child I saw at Tomorrow Kindergarten that day. The person following behind her seemed to be the person who picked her up that day. How do you know I am your mom? I asked. Dad said so. Dad also said that you will live with us from now on. Is that right? She looked at me, full of nervousness. Well, Mom will live with Maya Maya, I said. After saying that, I found Jason standing behind me, his eyes slightly red. In the next few days, Jason was very busy. Except for the servants. There were only me and the baby at home. The baby is very clingy and wants to sleep with me every day. In the morning, after having breakfast, she said to me with a smile, Mom, we don't go to kindergarten today. Can you play hide and seek with me? You go and hide first. Mom will come and find you when she counts to 10. When I reached out and wiped a grain of rice from the corner of her mouth, the little girl ran away happily. 2, 3, 4, 9, 10. Are you hidden well? Mom is coming to find you. Yes. A little girl's voice came from behind the curtain. I slowly got up and walked behind the sofa and said loudly, Is Maya Maya here? Oh, no. I walked behind the chair again. Is Maya behind the chair? Oh, no either. At the same time, the giggles of a little girl kept coming from behind the curtain. Finally, I walked behind the curtain. Is Maya behind the curtain? Oh, finally found Maya. You are so good at hiding. Mom has been looking for a long time. The little girl threw herself into my arms from behind the curtain. Mom, it's your turn to hide. Hide well. Maya will find you. Okay. At night. I waited until 12 o'clock before Jason came back. Aren't you asleep yet? He was a little surprised. I want to talk to you about something. I said. I'm tired today. Another day. Sooner or later we have to talk. It's useless for you to avoid it. I said. Jason sighed helplessly. What do you want to say? I want to live with Maya. We are living together. I mean me and Maya. You are not included. I emphasized. Jason's face instantly turned gloomy. You still won't forgive me. I know you have many grievances. My mother indirectly caused the death of your mother. You have also retaliated against us. It can be considered even. But I still love you. He interrupted. So what? I can no longer live with you. I can't pretend that nothing has happened. You still have a great future in life. But these have nothing to do with me anymore. As I believe that without me, you can live well. Of course. So can I. The more I said, the paler Jason's face became. Jason was silent for a long time before he said, Xiao Hui. Do you remember? Once when I rescued you and was hit on the head by Li Hun. You said you would fulfill one of my wishes. I remember. At that time, I was extremely distressed and guilty. I wished that it was me who was hit on the head instead of Jason. Seeing me like that, Jason said, Don't be sad. If you really feel guilty, then fulfill one of my wishes. I asked him what his wish was. He said he couldn't think of it for the moment, and would talk about it later. Is he now going to use this wish to tie me down? Jason seemed to know what I was thinking and said with a bitter smile, My wish is that I hope you can be happy for the rest of your life. Even without me. Xiao Hui. I have made a mistake once. I won't make a second mistake. His behavior was beyond my expectation. I was stunned for a while before I said, Okay. Thank you. I got up and went upstairs. When I was halfway up, I was stopped by Jason. Xiao Hui. After you take Maya away, can I visit her? I hesitated for a while before I said, Yes. After all, you are her father. The end. Jason's extra chapter. When I was 10 years old, my mother and I were driven out of the Liang family. Ethan brought his new love Nina back. Nina's narrow and charming eyes were narrowed. And the mole under the corner of her right eye was enchanting and strange. She was already 5 months pregnant. And her high and protruding belly was like a weapon. Everything was premeditated. Ethan had long completed the acquisition of the company's shares and transferred all the property. Then he kicked me and my mother out. Even though half of that property also belonged to my mother left with nothing but took me with her. She was a strong and optimistic person. After being depressed for a while, she threw herself back into the torrent of life. She said, Xiao Jing, since I can succeed in starting a business once, I can succeed a second time. It's just that you will have to endure hardships with your mother. With Mom, I am not afraid of hardships. I said. We had nowhere to go. My mother took me back to Grandma's house. Using Grandma's old house, she opened an old bookstore, Jing bookstore. The income of the bookstore was meager, so my mother asked Grandma to look after it. She herself found other jobs. She did transportation work on construction sites, delivered takeout, and repaired water pipes for others. She held multiple jobs. She went out early and returned late every day. Full of energy. But people are not made of iron after all. Before long, she fell ill. When she was sent to the hospital for examination, it was already terminal cancer. Grandma was extremely sad. And I was also very sad. Being sick is very tormenting. A week before my mother died, she had become extremely thin, with sunken cheeks and protruding bones on her legs. The cancer cells had spread throughout her body. She often had pain all over her body, especially severe pain in her legs. She often moaned in pain. The whimpering sound was like that of an injured cat. I massaged her beside her, but it didn't relieve her pain at all. I will always remember that day. Mom said she wanted to eat fish. I bought a fish and stewed it for her. She only took 2 bites and then couldn't eat anymore. Then she passed away. That evening, the setting sun was like blood. I sat there motionless, guarding her until her body became cold. I wanted to cry but couldn't. After my mother died, I depended on Grandma. But when I was 16 years old, Grandma also passed away. I was the only one left in this world. I guarded Grandma's already cold body. It felt like there was a big hole in my heart. The wind was whistling through. In the days to come, I continued to run Jing Jing bookstore and occasionally did some odd jobs. Barely enough for living expenses and tuition fees. At this time, my heart was desolate, and only hatred was growing wildly. I wanted Ethan and Nina to die miserably. One day, a special guest came to Jing Jing bookstore. It was a girl with a ponytail. Judging from the school uniform she was wearing, she should be from the high school next to mine. The moment she picked out a good book and looked up, I was struck like lightning. It was a face exactly the same as Nina's, with the same narrow eyes and eyebrows and the same mole. But this face looked enchanting and strange on Nina. On her, it looked innocent and ignorant. I guessed that she must have a special relationship with Nina. After making many inquiries, I learned that she was Nina's biological daughter. She had been abandoned by her mother since childhood and abused by her father. I hated Ethan and Nina to death. I even hated all the people related to them. An instant plan formed in my mind. First, pretend to save her. Pretend to fall in love with her. And then dump her in the end. I gave Leo, that bastard, a sum of money and asked Leo to kick her out of the house. When Lee Hun bullied her, I stepped forward. Everything was as I expected. She was very grateful to me and begged me to let her stay. I always thought that I only had hatred for her. But in fact, this hatred had already changed unconsciously. Since when did it start? Was it the time when she ran away from home because I made her angry? No, it seemed to be earlier. When I had a fever after getting caught in the rain. Although I had a fever, I felt very cold. I couldn't help but think of when I was a child. Every time I had a fever, my mother would hold me and comfort me. But now, I don't have a mother anymore. No one will hold me and comfort me. Mom. Mom, I dreamed that Mom came back and kept calling her. After a while, I felt a heat source approaching. It seemed that I was really being held by my mom. I couldn't help but hold that heat source tightly. It was the only warmth left in my life. I had been cold for too long. When I woke up the next day, she asked me if I missed my mom. I rarely had the desire to talk, so I told her some things about my family. Later, I thought I had already fallen in love with Hazel. That's why I fell in love with her, got married to her, and had a child. But I didn't dare to admit it. I was clearly trying to take revenge on her. I can't fall in love with Hazel. I must hate her. Only in this way can I be worthy of my dead mother. I won the first prize in an entrepreneurship project at school. But Hazel was even happier than me. She specially bought a cake to celebrate for me. This reminded me of when I was in elementary school and got the first place in the class. My mom also bought a cake to celebrate for me. Half a year after my mother and I were driven out of the Liang family, Nina gave birth to a son for Ethan. But that kid was not very promising. He was spoiled and became a playboy. Ethan wanted me to go back to the company. My mother's old subordinates also found me. They said that the company originally had half of my mother's. Ethan didn't deserve to manage the company. The company should return to me. Cindy appeared at that time. She liked me, investigated me, and took the initiative to come to me to help me. The condition was that after success, I had to marry her. I refused her. I will take back the management right of the company by myself. But Cindy didn't give up. She came to me again and said she wanted to cooperate with me. She would help me regain the dominance of the company. The condition was that for the first major project I took back the company, I had to cooperate with the Lin family. This time, I agreed. Cindy came to my house to discuss cooperation and confessed to me again. I refused her again. There was unwillingness in her eyes. She asked me, "Jason, you can't be in love with Hazel." Thinking of my mother. Like a mouse whose tail was stepped on. I immediately retorted, "How could I like the daughter of that bitch?" Cindy smiled satisfactorily. I didn't expect Hazel to hear the conversation between me and Cindy at home. Not including that time at the hotel. The conversation at Yinghua Hotel was deliberately let her hear by me. That anonymous text message was sent by me to her. These were also part of my revenge. As expected, I saw Hazel at Yinghua Hotel. I saw her with tears all over her face and heartbroken. I found that I didn't have the pleasure I imagined. Instead, my heart ached terribly. I watched Hazel stagger away, in a trance. It was like the day Grandma died again. I was the only one left in this world again. I suddenly realized that I didn't actually hate Hazel. When I gave Leo money and asked him to kick her out of the house, the first thing I thought of was to live with her. I had been alone for too long. I wanted a warmth and a companionship. Even if this warmth came from the daughter of the person I hated the most. I suddenly realized that I just wanted to live with Hazel like this for a lifetime. I couldn't help but chase after Hazel. But Cindy held me back. She said, "Jason, the police have come. Tonight is the best time to send Nina and Ethan to prison. You have to stay and cooperate with the investigation. If you leave now, all your previous efforts will be wasted." I paused and stayed. Hazel was innocent. But Ethan and Nina were not. Afam and Nina were sentenced for economic crimes. The Liang company was officially taken over by me. At the moment when everything was settled, I went to my mother's grave. I told her that I had avenged her. I told her that Hazel was the person I loved. I would live with her for a lifetime. I told her that although Hazel was Nina's daughter, she was nothing like Nina at all. She was kind and pure. She gave me all her rare love and warmth. She deserved all the best. But Hazel disappeared. She disappeared without a sound. For half a year, I searched the entire city of Beijing. I used all my connections but still couldn't find her. After taking over the Liang company, I still ran Jingjing bookstore. I was afraid that if Hazel came back one day, she wouldn't be able to find home. One day, a couple came to the old bookstore to buy books. While choosing books, they chatted. I heard the girl say to her boyfriend, "Let's go to Xinjiang for summer vacation." "Why do you want to go to Xinjiang?" "I read my Altai and want to go." "Okay. Then let's plan to go in summer vacation." My Altai. Hazel seemed to have told me about this book. But at that time, my heart was full of revenge. I didn't pay attention to it at all. Could Hazel have gone to Xinjiang? Thinking of this possibility, I was very excited. I put down everything and rushed to Xinjiang without stopping. I found Hazel. She was pregnant and didn't tell me. She didn't look very good. She had lost a lot of weight. Her chin had become very pointed. Her limbs were slender. Only her belly was bulging high. She looked at me with calm and unwavering eyes. As if looking at a dead thing. She seemed to hate me. More like she didn't care about anything. I would rather she hate me. Isn't there love only when there is hate? Instead of not caring about anything, I had a bad premonition. So even if Hazel drove me away, I didn't leave. Instead, I stayed at her house. In the middle of the night, I suddenly woke up and found that the doors and windows were wide open. Hazel was not in the room. From the kitchen to the gate, there was a trickle of blood. That blood trail me entered all the way outside. My heart was pounding. Without thinking, I got up and chased along the blood trail. I found Hazel in the Gobi Desert. She had fainted. The wound on her wrist was still bleeding continuously. I tore my clothes and wrapped her wound. I picked her up and ran wildly. Fortunately, a car passed by and took me and her to the hospital. Due to excessive blood loss and premature labor, the child was put in an incubator. Hazel was out of danger, but she still didn't wake up. Finally, when she woke up, she didn't want to talk either. The big bright eyes that were originally full of spirit had now become empty. I held the child for her to see. She turned her face away. Later, the doctor said that both she and the child could be discharged from the hospital.